The stars looked different from space. Commander Han stood at the observation deck of the Remembrance, gazing at the unfamiliar constellations that had become home over the past 2 centuries. His weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as he thought about Earth, a planet none aboard had ever seen except in old recordings. 200 years had passed since humanity fled their homeworld. The Talek invasion had come without warning. Massive ships darkened the skies above every major city. Humanity fought back with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. The Talek weapons were too advanced, their armor too strong. "Commander?" A voice called from behind. Han turned to see his second-in-command, Officer Park, holding a small metal container. "The archivists found something in the lower storage sections," Park said, placing the container on the nearby table. "They thought you should see it first." Han opened the container carefully. Inside lay an old data crystal, the kind used in the early days of the evacuation. He inserted it into the nearby console, and the air filled with holographic images. Research. Notes, military reports, and biological scans of the Talek. "These are Dr. Moon's final research findings," Han whispered, recognizing the scientist's work. "Everyone thought they were lost during the last evacuation ship's damaged flight." Park moved closer, studying the floating information. "What am I looking at?" Han's fingers traced through the data, expanding certain sections. Dr. Moon was studying Talek biology right until the end. "These are weaknesses, critical ones. Their respiratory system can't filter certain compounds. Their communication relies on specific frequencies we could disrupt. Their armor has joints that—" He paused, looking up with widening eyes. "We could have fought them better." "It's too late now," Park said quietly. "No," Han replied, determination hardening his voice. "It's exactly the right time." The Remembrance was the largest of humanity's generation ships, home to over 40,000 people. What had begun as a desperate fleet of evacuation vessels had evolved into a powerful interstellar civilization. Humans had adapted, learned from alien races they encountered, traded technology, and built something remarkable from the ashes of their lost home. Han spent weeks studying Dr. Moon's findings, bringing in the ship's best scientists and military strategists. They worked tirelessly, comparing the old data with what they now knew about advanced weaponry and defense systems. "It could work," said Chief Engineer Jin during their final meeting. "With our current technology and these weaknesses, we could actually fight them." The council chamber erupted in voices, some excited, others fearful. The thought of returning to Earth had always seemed like a distant dream, not a possible reality. "We should approach the Galactic Council," suggested Councillor Lee. "With their support, we'd have a much better chance." And so they did. Han personally led the delegation to the massive ring station where the Council of Seven Worlds held their meetings. The Council had always been sympathetic to humanity's plight, but maintained a policy of non-interference with the Talek, who were viewed as primitive despite their military technology. The council chamber was grand, with sweeping views of the nearby nebula. Representatives from the 7 most powerful spacefaring civilizations sat in elevated positions, looking down at the human delegation. "We understand your desire to reclaim your ancestral home," said Council Leader Zor, his translucent skin rippling with sympathetic colors. "But the Council cannot support military action against the Talek. The risks of escalation are too great. We have the means to succeed now," Han argued, displaying the data they had discovered. "All we ask is your support, ships, resources." Representative Tola of the Meridian Alliance leaned forward. "The Talek have remained isolated on Earth for 2 centuries. They've shown no signs of expanding beyond your former world. Why disturb this balance?" "Because it's our home," Han said simply, "and they took it from us." "Your ancestral claim is—" "Noted," said Representative Dovan from the Elysium Collective, "but it is insufficient justification for the Council to commit resources to what would certainly be a bloody conflict." The debate continued for hours, but the outcome became increasingly clear. The Council would offer humanitarian aid to human refugees, but military support for reclaiming Earth was out of the question. As the session concluded, Council Leader Zor approached Han privately. "I am truly sorry, Commander. Perhaps in another generation, circumstances may change." Han stood straight, his voice steady despite the disappointment weighing on him. My people have waited 200 years already. We won't wait another 200. What will you do? Zor asked, concern evident in his voice. Han's reply was simple but carried the weight of absolute conviction. Then we'll take it back ourselves. Those words spread quickly among the human settlements across 3 star systems. Within months, volunteers began pouring in. Engineers adapted civilian ships for military purposes. Weapons were designed specifically to target Talek weaknesses. Training programs prepared a generation that had never known war for the coming conflict. On the Bridge of the Remembrance, now retrofitted as a command vessel, Han watched as the human fleet assembled. Ships of all sizes, some built from scratch, others converted, moved into formation. The largest military force humanity had mustered since the Exodus. Fleet reports ready, Commander, Park announced, standing at attention beside him. Han nodded, taking one last look at the stars that had sheltered them for 2 centuries. Then he gave the order that would change the course of human history. Set course for Earth, it's time to go home. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of the Shadow Whisper, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched Earth grow larger on the main display. After 3 months of travel, the blue planet that existed only in historical archives and stories told by elders was finally before them. Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels, reported Navigation Officer Song, his voice barely above a whisper, despite the fact that sound couldn't travel through space. Everyone on the reconnaissance mission spoke quietly, a psychological effect of their secretive approach. No detection signals from planetary defense systems, added Communications Officer Joe. They don't see us. Kim nodded, her expression serious. The stealth technology protecting their small fleet of 5 ships represented humanity's greatest technological achievement during their exile. Reverse engineered from trading with the reclusive Veil species and enhanced with human innovation, the cloaking field bent light and absorbed radar while dispersing heat signatures across a wide area. To any observer, they simply weren't there. Begin. Orbital scanning, Kim ordered. I want complete planetary survey data. Focus on population centers and resource extraction sites. The crew worked efficiently, their movements practiced from countless drills. This wasn't just any mission, it was the first time humans had approached Earth in 2 centuries. Admiral, called Science Officer Choi after several hours of scanning, you need to see this. Kim moved to the science station where Choi had compiled the initial survey results. The images made her stomach tighten. Vast stretches of Earth's surface had been transformed into enormous strip mines. The Amazon basin, once the planet's green lungs, was now a massive pit. Similar destruction scarred Africa and parts of Asia. But strangely, other regions remained untouched, the high mountain ranges, the deepest jungles, and most surprisingly, the vast deserts. They're strip mining for resources, Kim said, but they're avoiding certain biomes completely. The Talek appear to be highly sensitive to temperature extremes and certain terrain types, Choi explained. Based on our scans, they've avoided regions above certain elevations, extremely arid areas, and zones with high humidity and dense vegetation. So they can't adapt to these environments, Kim murmured. Interesting. Admiral, interrupted Communications. Officer Joe urgently. We're picking up a signal. It's impossible. What is it? Kim turned sharply. It's a human emergency beacon. Old pattern, pre-invasion. Joe looked up, eyes wide. Coming from the Himalayan range. The bridge fell silent. Everyone had assumed Earth had been completely conquered. That no human remained on the homeworld. Could it be a trap? Asked Security Chief Yoon. Possibly, Kim admitted. But we need to know. She made her decision quickly. Prepare a dropship. Minimal crew, I'll lead the ground team myself. Despite protests from her officers about the risk to their commanding officer, Kim wouldn't be dissuaded. 6 hours later, she led a team of 5 specialists in a stealthy descent to Earth's surface, landing in a narrow valley high in the Himalayas, where the signal originated. The air was thin and cold. Kim felt the strange sensation of natural gravity pulling at her body, stronger than the artificial gravity they maintained on their ships. The team moved cautiously through the rocky terrain, weapons ready, sensors scanning for Talek presence. They found the entrance to a cave system, cleverly disguised with local materials. As they approached, figures emerged from hiding places, human figures with raised weapons. "Stop there," called a weathered voice. A grey-haired man stepped forward, his face leathered by sun and wind, eyes sharp and evaluating. "Who are you? And how did you find us?" Kim raised her hand slowly. "I'm Admiral Kim of the human fleet. We picked up your beacon from orbit." The man's eyes widened. "Human fleet? You came back?" "We did," Kim answered simply. The man introduced himself as Bay, leader of what he called the Mountain Clan, descendants of those who had refused to board the evacuation ships 2 centuries ago, preferring to take their chances hiding in the mountains where the Talek rarely ventured. Inside their hidden complex, Kim was astonished to find over 2,000 people living in an elaborate system of caves and concealed structures. They had maintained technology by scavenging and innovation, developing methods to remain undetected by Talek sensors. "There are others like us," Bay explained, as they sat around a small heat source, sharing a meal of cultivated fungi and synthesized protein. Desert communities in the Sahara and Gobi, jungle enclaves in what's left of Southeast Asia. We maintain contact through a network of couriers and low-frequency communication that the Talek can't detect or don't bother monitoring. "How many survived?" asked Kim. "Across all the hidden settlements?" "Perhaps 50,000, Bay answered. "Not many compared to before, but we've endured. We've watched. We've learned." He led Kim to a room filled with salvaged Talek technology and detailed maps of their movements and facilities. "We've been fighting a guerrilla war for generations," he explained. "Small strikes, sabotage, nothing that would provoke a major response, but enough to gather intelligence and keep our skills sharp." Kim studied their information with growing excitement. "This is incredible. You've documented patrol patterns, communication protocols, command structures, 200 years of observation," Bay said with quiet pride. "But the most important thing we've learned isn't on any map or data file." He leaned forward. "The Talek are powerful, but they have a fundamental weakness. They don't adapt well to change. Their society is hierarchical and rigid, and most importantly, they still don't believe humans are a serious threat." "They underestimate us," Kim said, understanding immediately. "Completely," Bay nodded. "After the invasion, they classified us as a defeated species. They've grown complacent. Their security is designed to handle the occasional raiding party, not an organized military force, and certainly not one with advanced technology." Kim spent 3 days with the Mountain Clan, gathering intelligence and establishing communication protocols. Before leaving, she provided them with modern medical supplies and communication devices linked to the fleet. Back aboard the Shadow Whisper, Kim called her officers together. "Everything we thought we knew about retaking Earth has changed," she told them. "We're not just fighting for a memory or an ideal. There are humans down there, tens of thousands who never left, who've been fighting all this time." She brought up a holographic display of Earth, highlighting the Talek installations and the hidden human enclaves. "We have advantages we never expected," she continued. "Detailed intelligence on enemy positions and procedures, allies on the ground, and most importantly, the element of surprise. The Talek think they've won completely. They have no idea what's coming." Kim looked around at her crew, seeing determination reflected in their eyes. "Send word to Commander Han and the main fleet. Operation Homecoming is a go." As the Shadow Whisper transmitted their findings to the approaching human armada, Kim stood, alone at the observation window, looking down at the blue-green planet that was both familiar and strange. Somewhere down there, human beings had survived against impossible odds, never giving up hope that someday their kind would return from the stars. And now they had. Captain Lee checked his combat suit one final time as the dropship hurtled through Earth's atmosphere. Around him, 30 elite soldiers did the same, adjusting armor seals, testing weapon systems, and running final diagnostics. Their faces showed a mix of determination and tension. Unlike the others, Lee had an additional weight on his shoulders. His team had drawn the most dangerous assignment in Operation Homecoming: direct insertion into the Talek Central Hive in former Europe. 2 minutes to landing zone, announced the pilot over the comm system. Talek air defenses remain unaware. of our approach. Lee stood, grabbing a handhold as the ship shuddered through turbulence. "Remember your training," he told his team. "The Talek don't expect us. They don't think we're capable of this. By the time they realize what's happening, we'll be inside their command structure." "What if their central hive is different from our intelligence?" asked Corporal Kang, the youngest member of the strike team. "Then we adapt," Lee replied simply. "That's what humans do best." Across the planet, 6 other dropships were making similar approaches to their targets. For the first time in 2 centuries, humanity was returning to Earth in force, not as refugees but as liberators. The ship's descent slowed as they approached the landing zone, a maintenance access point identified by resistance intelligence. The ruins of what had once been Paris surrounded the massive Talek hive, a towering structure of alien design that dominated the landscape. 30 seconds, called the pilot. "No alarms triggered." Lee activated his helmet display, watching as real-time data from the fleet synchronized with his systems. Across 7 continents, all teams reported ready status. The timing had to be perfect. Simultaneous insertions to prevent the Talek from concentrating their response. Operation Homecoming. "As go," came Admiral Kim's voice over the command channel. "Good hunting." The dropship touched down with barely a tremor, its stealth systems masking both visual signature and noise. The rear hatch opened onto a foggy morning. "Move," Lee ordered, and his team flowed out in practiced formation, weapons ready. Their combat suits were the culmination of human engineering during exile, lightweight yet stronger than anything they'd had during the initial invasion. Each was equipped with sensory enhancement, adaptive camouflage, and environmental protection specifically designed to counter Talek detection methods. The team moved swiftly through the ruins toward the maintenance access point, a massive ventilation system that circulated air through the hive. According to resistance intelligence, the Talek rarely guarded these systems, considering them too small for any serious threat. "Access point in sight," reported Sergeant Jin, the team's point scout. 2 guards, standard patrol pattern. Lee signaled for the team to hold position while he assessed the situation. The Talek guards were imposing, nearly 8 feet tall with insectoid features and natural armor plating. Their weapon systems were built into their forearms, capable of devastating energy discharge. "Team 2, take flanking position," Lee ordered quietly. "Team 1 with me. Remember, sound suppressors on all weapons." The attack was swift and silent, specially designed darts carrying a nerve agent that exploited the Talek respiratory weakness identified in Dr. Moon's ancient research, struck the guards simultaneously. They collapsed without raising an alarm. "Access point secure," Lee reported to the command channel. "Beginning Phase 2. As his team prepared to enter the ventilation system, reports flowed in from the other landing sites. All 7 insertion teams had successfully reached their initial objectives. So far, the impossible was becoming possible. Inside the ventilation system, Lee's team moved with practiced efficiency. The narrow passages would have been challenging for the larger Talek, but human soldiers navigated them easily. Their path took them deeper into the hive, toward the central command node identified by resistance intelligence. "Biosensors detecting heavy Talek presence ahead," warned Jin. "Looks like we're approaching a major junction." Lee consulted the 3D map projected in his helmet. "That's the primary distribution hub. Beyond it is the secondary command center. Once we secure that, we can disable internal security for the main assault force." The team positioned themselves around the junction, planting specialized disruptors designed to interfere with Talek communication frequencies. On Lee's signal, they activated the devices and moved in. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The dozen Talek workers in the junction began moving erratically, their coordinated efforts dissolving into confusion as their pheromone-based communication system was disrupted by human technology. "Now!" Lee ordered, and his team struck. The fight was brief but intense. The Talek workers were not soldiers, but they were still dangerous when cornered. Human weapons fired specialized ammunition that penetrated the vulnerable joint sections of Talek natural armor, another weakness identified from the ancient research. Within minutes, the junction was secure, with no alarm raised. Lee's team worked quickly to tap into the hive's internal systems, creating a secure access point for their technical specialists. Command, this is Captain Lee. Phase 2, complete. Beginning system infiltration. Across the planet, similar progress reports came in from the other teams. 6 of the 7 insertions had succeeded in establishing initial footholds. The 7th, in the southern continent, had encountered unexpected resistance but was adapting. Its approach. Lieutenant Doe, the team's technical specialist, connected to the Talek systems. Their architecture is complex, but I'm making progress. Another few minutes and we should have access to internal security protocols. That was when the first tremor shook the structure. What was that? Asked Corporal Kang. A second, stronger tremor followed. They've detected one of the other teams, Lee realized. Command status report. Admiral Kim's voice came through, tense but controlled. The Australia team was discovered. Talek orbital platforms are firing on their position. All teams accelerate. Timeline. We've lost the element of total surprise. Lee turned to Lieutenant Doe. How much longer? Almost there, Doe replied, fingers moving rapidly over the interface. Just need to bypass one more security. Got it? On the tactical display, Lee watched as internal security systems throughout the hive began shutting down. Doors that should have been locked opened. Alarm systems went silent. Surveillance networks showed only empty corridors regardless of what was actually there. Command, we have system access. Proceeding to Phase 3. Lee led his team deeper, into the hive, moving swiftly now that stealth was compromised. They encountered small groups of confused Talek soldiers, dealing with them efficiently before they could organize any coherent defense. Outside, the situation was escalating. Talek orbital weapons were firing on detected human positions, but something unexpected was happening. Captain, you need to see this, said Sergeant Jin, displaying a feed from outside sensors. The energy weapons from Talek orbital platforms were being intercepted before they could reach their targets. Shimmering barriers of energy, shields based on Talek technology but vastly improved by human engineers, absorbed the attacks. The shield network is holding, came Admiral Kim's satisfied. Voice over the command channel. All teams continue mission. Fleet elements are beginning atmospheric entry. In the skies above Earth, the main human fleet was emerging from stealth, positioning itself between the Talek orbital platforms and the ground forces. Ships that had once been generation vessels carrying the survivors of humanity now returned as a formidable armada, armed with weapons specifically designed to target Talek weaknesses. Lee's team reached the secondary command center and secured it with minimal resistance. From there, they gained access to the hive's primary communications array. This is Captain Lee to all resistance cells, he broadcast on frequencies the surviving humans on Earth had used for generations. Operation Homecoming is underway. I repeat, humanity has returned. Activate all emergency protocols and proceed to designated rally points. Across the planet, hidden communities of humans who had survived 2 centuries of occupation emerged from their hiding places. Armed with a combination of salvaged Talek technology and their own innovations, they struck at predetermined targets: power distribution nodes, communication relays, transportation hubs. In the Talek Central Hive, Lee watched on monitoring systems as confusion turned to chaos throughout the alien command structure. Their rigid hierarchy, so effective in normal operations, became a liability when faced with simultaneous attacks on multiple fronts. Command, this is Captain Lee. The Central Hive is in disarray. Request permission to proceed to Phase 4. Permission. Granted, replied Admiral Kim. The main landing force is launching now. Hold your position and prepare to receive reinforcements. Lee turned to his team, allowing himself a small smile for the first time since landing. Well done, everyone. Now the real work begins. Colonel Park crouched behind the remains of what had once been a school building, now serving as a forward command post in the battle for Seoul. The city had been transformed over 2 centuries of Talek occupation, alien architecture jutting from the ruins of human civilization like parasitic growths. 3 days into the ground campaign, the initial advantage of surprise had faded. Now came the true test. Status report. Park ordered, wiping dust from his tactical display. Major Yoon, his operations officer, pulled up the latest battlefield. Data. The Talek have adapted to our initial tactics. They've reinforced their defensive positions here, here, and here. She pointed to 3 locations where human forces had made significant gains the previous day. Their counterattack pattern suggests they expect us to continue the same approach. Park studied the display thoughtfully, noting the rigid geometric formations the Talek forces had adopted. So they think they've figured us out? Yes, sir. Classic Talek response. Identify pattern, develop counter, implement universally. A slight smile touched Park's weathered face. Then let's show them why that doesn't work against humans. Contact all battalion commanders. We're implementing tactical shift protocol. Within the hour, every human combat unit had received new orders. Forces that had been advancing directly now circled to approach from unexpected angles. Units that had been using heavy weapons switched to infiltration tactics. Electronic warfare teams that had been jamming one frequency band jumped to another. From his position, Park watched as confusion rippled through the Talek defensive line. Their forces had prepared for a specific human attack pattern, and when that pattern suddenly changed completely, their response was slow and uncoordinated. "They're falling back in Sector 4, reported Lieutenant Gill from the Tactical Communications Station. "Our forces have broken through their line." "Excellent," Park nodded. "Remind all commanders. Maintain tactical flexibility. I want full pattern shifts every 60 minutes. This was humanity's greatest advantage in the war to reclaim Earth. Where the Talek thought and fought as a collective, efficient but predictable, humans excelled at individual initiative and rapid adaptation. The Talek would eventually adjust to any new human tactic, but by then those tactics would already have changed again. As the battle for Seoul progressed, Park received a priority communication from the science vessel orbiting Earth. "Colonel, this is Dr. Choi. My team is ready to deploy Project Silence. We need your authorization." Park moved to a secure communication terminal. Dr. Choi's face appeared on the screen, tired but excited. Behind her, Park could see a laboratory filled with equipment. "Your timing is perfect, Doctor," Park replied. "We're making progress on the ground, but the Talek are starting to coordinate their responses more effectively. What's your confidence level in the project?" 93%, Choi answered without hesitation. "We've run every simulation possible. The targeted pheromone disruptor should affect all Talek within the dispersion zone while having 0 effect on humans or Earth's remaining ecosystem." Project Silence had been in development throughout the exile years, a specialized bioweapon designed not to kill, but to disrupt the complex pheromone language the Talek used for coordination and complex planning. Based on Dr. Moon's original research and refined through centuries of scientific advancement, it represented one of humanity's most sophisticated weapons. "You have my authorization," Park decided. "Deploy when ready." 6 hours later, as human, forces continued their adaptive attack patterns across the planet. Specially designed distribution pods entered Earth's atmosphere. Disguised to mimic Talek supply drops, they dispersed their contents at precise altitudes, releasing an invisible odorless compound engineered to bind specifically to Talek communication receptors. The effects weren't immediately obvious. There was no dramatic collapse of Talek forces, no sudden victory. Instead, something more subtle and ultimately more devastating began to occur. At his command post, now relocated to a captured Talek outpost, Park watched the tactical displays with growing satisfaction. "Their coordination is breaking down," observed Major Yoon. "Look at these movement patterns, units contradicting each other, reinforcements heading to the wrong locations, fire control becoming erratic." "Dr. Choi's work is paying off," Park nodded. "The Talek are still individually dangerous, but they're losing their collective efficiency." Communications Officer Sung looked up from his station with excitement. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy. Spikes from Talek communication arrays. They appear to be attempting to contact their home system." This had been anticipated. The Talek, facing unexpected resistance, would call for reinforcements from their empire. It was a contingency humanity had prepared for extensively. "Implement Operation Blackout," Park ordered. Across Earth orbit, specialized human vessels that had remained hidden now activated powerful quantum interference generators, technology acquired through trade with the enigmatic Veld species during humanity's exile. These devices created a disruption field that blocked faster-than-light communications, effectively isolating Earth from the rest of the Talek Empire. Quantum interference field established, reported Commander Kang from the orbital fleet. There, signals are being scrambled. Earth is now cut off from any outside Talek contact. The implications were enormous. The Talek forces on Earth would receive no reinforcement, no guidance from their higher command. They were alone, just as humanity had been for 200 years. As night fell over the battlefield, Park called his field commanders together for a strategy session. The command center they occupied had been a Talek facility just that morning, now repurposed for human use, another example of adaptation. The situation has shifted decisively in our favor, Park told them, highlighting key positions on the tactical display. The Talek are now fighting blind, deaf, and increasingly confused. But they're still dangerous, perhaps more so as they grow desperate. He zoomed the display out to show the entire Korean peninsula. We're observing unusual movement patterns here. In what used to be North Gyeongsang province, intelligence suggests the regional Talek commander is consolidating forces for a major counter-offensive. Conventional wisdom would say we should reinforce our positions and prepare to weather their assault, Park continued. Instead, we're going to hit them before they're ready, from 3 directions they won't expect, using weapons they haven't seen yet. The gathered officers nodded in understanding. This was the human way of war now, constant adaptation, refusing to establish patterns that could be predicted. One final note, Park added. We've received word from Captain Lee's team at the Central. Hive, they've uncovered something important. The Talek leadership caste appears to be gathering at their primary command center in the Himalayan region. Admiral Kim is coordinating with General Yoon for what may be our final major operation. As the meeting concluded and officers returned to their units, Park stepped outside the command post. In the distance, flashes of light illuminated the horizon where fighting continued. Above, the stars were partly obscured by orbital combat. Has the human fleet methodically dismantled Talek space defenses? Major Yoon joined him, offering a canteen of water. The troops are calling it the 200-year reply, she said quietly. The what? This campaign. They're saying it took us 200 years to come up with our answer to the Talek invasion, but it was worth the wait. Park looked up at the night sky, thinking of the generations that had lived and died in exile, never giving up the dream of returning home. 200 years, he murmured. Let's make sure it counts. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Himalayan peaks as General Yoon surveyed the battlefield from her command aircraft. Below, the massive Talek mothership dominated the landscape, half buried in the mountain range, its dark metal surface reflecting the early light. For 2 centuries it had sat here, the ultimate symbol of humanity's defeat. Today, that would change. Final reports from all battle groups, announced Colonel Jin, her chief of staff. All units in position, ground forces, air support, and orbital assets standing by. Yoon nodded, her expression solemn. 3 weeks of fighting across the planet had led to this moment. The Talek, their communication systems disrupted and their forces scattered, had fallen back to their final stronghold, the very vessel that had carried their invasion force to Earth 2 centuries ago. Open a channel to all forces, Yoon ordered, when high. The communications officer signaled ready. Yoon spoke clearly and with quiet confidence. This is General Yoon to all human forces. 200 years ago, our ancestors faced a choice, extinction or exile. They chose to survive, to preserve our species, to build strength among the stars. They never forgot Earth. They never abandoned hope. Today, we fulfill their dream and reclaim our homeworld. She paused, looking out at the mothership again. Each of you knows your role. Each of you carries the hopes of generations. Fight with courage, with determination, but also with honor. We are not just reclaiming territory. We are reclaiming humanity's birthright. Operation Homecoming ends today. The Suwa. Assault began with a precision strike from orbit. Human ships, using technology developed during their long exile, targeted the mothership's external defense systems with weapons specifically designed to bypass Talek shields. On the ground, advanced infantry units led by Captain Lee, the heroes of the Central Hive infiltration, moved into position around the mountain base. Their role was critical, breaching the lower access points while drawing attention away from the main assault team. In the air, squads of atmospheric fighters engaged the remaining Talek air defenses. They moved in constantly shifting patterns, never presenting a predictable target, embodying the adaptive approach that had proven so effective throughout the campaign. From her command aircraft, Yoon monitored all three fronts simultaneously, adjusting the battle plan as needed. Unlike the rigid Talek command structure, human forces operated with coordinated independence, each unit able to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining the overall strategy. Lower defenses breached, reported Captain Lee over the tactical channel. Moving to secure internal access points. Orbital bombardment complete, came word from Admiral Kim's flagship. External weapon systems neutralized, moving to Phase 2 positions. Yoon gave the order that would define the final stage of the battle. Main assault force, you are go for primary insertion. At her command, the heart of the Human Liberation Army, 10,000 elite soldiers equipped with the most advanced technology humanity had developed during exile, began their approach to the mothership's main command center. Yoon's aircraft descended, landing at a forward command post established on a plateau overlooking the battlefield. She wanted to be closer to the action for this final push. As she stepped out, the cold mountain air filled her lungs. Earth's air, wild and crisp, so different from the carefully managed atmospheres of the exile ships. The assault progressed with methodical precision. The Talek defenders fought fiercely, but their tactics were predictable. Their responses slowed by the breakdown in their communication systems. Human forces pushed deeper into the mothership, securing section after section. "General," called Colonel Jin urgently, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from the central chamber. It appears the Talek Supreme Overlord is preparing some kind of last resort weapon." Yoon studied the data, then made a swift decision. "All forces, priority shift to central chamber breach. We need to end this now." Leading a special tactical team, Yoon herself entered the mothership. The interior was alien, angular corridors, designed for beings larger than humans. Lighting that cast everything in a greenish glow, the air heavy with unfamiliar scents. Signs of battle were everywhere. Scorch marks from energy weapons, abandoned Talek equipment, occasionally the still form of a fallen soldier from either side. After navigating the labyrinthine structure, Yoon's team reached the entrance to the central chamber, just as Captain Lee's forces arrived from another direction. "Honor to join you for the final push, General," Lee said with a quick salute. "The honor is mine, Captain," Yoon replied. "Your team's actions at the Central Hive made this moment possible." Together, they breached the massive doors protecting the central chamber. Inside, surrounded by the last of their elite guard, stood the Talek Supreme Overlord, nearly 12 feet tall, with the distinctive armored carapace of the leadership caste. Around the chamber, consoles flashed with warning lights as energy, built up in what was clearly a doomsday device. "If we cannot have this world, neither shall you," the Overlord announced in the mechanical tone of a translation device. "Our legacy will be your destruction." Yoon stepped forward, weapon lowered but ready. "Your legacy can be something else, something better." For a tense moment, the chamber was silent, except for the increasing whine of the charging weapon system. "This conflict can end in two ways," Yoon continued, "with mutual destruction or with a new beginning. The choice is yours." The Overlord's compound eyes studied her. "You would offer terms to the conquered?" "We would offer life," Yoon answered simply. "Isn't that worth more than pride?" What followed was the first true negotiation between humans and Talek in 2 centuries. As the doomsday device was carefully powered down, Yoon activated a communications link to all human forces worldwide. "This is General Yoon," she announced, her voice carried to every soldier, every resistance fighter, every human across the planet. "The Talek Supreme Overlord has surrendered. Earth is ours again. Humanity has returned home." The weeks that followed saw a remarkable transformation. Rather than extermination, which many had expected would be humanity's response to 2 centuries of exile, the defeated Talek were confined to Antarctica, a continent whose harsh conditions humans rarely settled, but which suited Talek physiology. There, under careful observation, they would have the opportunity to build a new society separate from their empire. 1 month after the final battle, the impressive ring ship of the Galactic Council appeared in Earth orbit. Council leader Saw and a delegation of representatives from the 7 worlds requested permission to land, a courtesy they had never extended when the Talek controlled the planet. Ambassador Song, formerly a historian aboard the Generation ship Remembrance, received them in the newly established human capital of New Geneva. We have come to mediate the conflict and ensure a lasting peace between humans and Talek, announced Council leader Zor, his translucent skin showing confusion patterns when he realized the fighting had already ended. Song smiled politely. As you can see, the situation has been resolved. The Talek who choose to remain peacefully have been provided territory suitable to their needs. Those who wish to return to their empire have been allowed to do so in the transport vessels we provided. This is unexpected, admitted Representative Dovan from the Elysium Collective. The Council predicted a prolonged conflict requiring our intervention. Perhaps the Council should reconsider its habit of underestimating humanity, Song suggested. Mildly, Saw shifted uncomfortably. The Council recognizes humanity's achievement in reclaiming your ancestral world. We would like to formally recognize Earth as a protected planet under Council authority and extend an invitation for humanity to petition for associate membership. Song's expression remained pleasant, but her words carried unmistakable strength. Earth was never yours to give away, nor is it yours to reclaim or protect, but you are welcome as guests on humanity's homeworld. The message was clear. Humanity had returned not as supplicants seeking the Council's approval, but as equals expecting respect. 1 year after Operation Homecoming, the first city built entirely by returning humans was completed, near what had once been Sydney. Children who had been born in space now played in parks under an open sky, feeling natural gravity and breathing unfiltered air for the first time. At a quiet observation point overlooking the city, Admiral Kim stood beside Commander Han, watching. Families explore their new home. Do you ever think about the cost? Kim asked quietly. 200 years of exile, generations who lived and died never seeing Earth except in recordings. Han nodded slowly. Every day. But I also think about what we gained. 200 years ago, we were fractured nations barely reaching our moon. Now we've built ships that travel between stars. We've developed technology the Talek thought impossible. We've learned to appreciate what it means to be human. In the distance, the setting sun painted the clouds in brilliant colors no simulation could ever truly capture. We're home, Han said simply, and we can never be stopped again.